Hello, and welcome to My Week in Baseball. I'm your host, Phil Estruth Harrison. You are listening to episode number 2, and today we'll be talking about Kershaw, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Chistian Pache, Corey Seager, Miguel Cabrera, yes again, along with our Blimerick, also known as our Baseball Limerick of the Week, and 2 new features called Blast from the Past and Cap of the Day, which I'll hope you enjoy. So let's get right to it. This broadcast is being co-published both as a podcast and on YouTube. So for those of you watching today on YouTube, you'll be able to see the Cap of the Day. For those of you listening, I'll describe it. It is a royal blue Detroit Tigers cap, and it is a special edition for Grand Valley State University. And if you're watching, you'll see on the side of the cap here, I've got the GV logo for Grand Valley State University. It's a great state school on the western side of the state in the town of Allendale near Grand Rapids. And the Tigers issue special edition caps for alumni games each year throughout the season for other schools as well. But I happen to especially like this cap for GV. So call out to GVSU, and that is my cap of the day. On to current topics. So last week, the week of April 11th, 2022, there were quite a few things that happened, and it makes it really great to have these topics for a podcast because so many interesting things came up. First of which was on April 13, Clayton Kershaw was pitching a perfect game for 7 innings. He hit the 80 pitch count. He finished the 7 innings and he was taken out of the game. So it was really nice to see him in midseason form right out of the gate like that, pitching so well. And I got to tell you, I had mixed feelings about taking him out. Part of me understood it, of course. Kershaw has an injury history and was recovering from a serious elbow injury that ended his season last year. There was a shortened spring training, of course, this season as well. So he didn't have the time to prepare, especially after the lockout by MLB of the players. So I get that. And from the manager's point of view, you've got to take a long view of the season, right? Individual accomplishments are great and they're really amazing for history of the game. And at the same time, you want to win throughout the season. You want to do well in the playoffs. And you've got a guy who is a sure Hall of Famer, Clayton Kershaw, who you need. If you're going to do well this season, if you're going to go deep in the playoffs, you need him and you need him to be healthy and pitching well. So I get it. But the fan in me at the same time, if I'm the manager, I understand. As a fan, I don't really like it. And I did appreciate this quote from Kershaw, who woke up the next morning and it felt like he had mixed feelings about it too. So I'll just read part of the quote. But he says, "The only thing I feel bad for is if I was a fan, I would want to see somebody finish the game. So from a fan's perspective, I do feel bad for that. I wish I could have done it, but yesterday wasn't the day." So kudos for Kershaw for bringing it up because I think that's true. As a fan, you really would like to see someone at least get the shot at the 9-inning perfect game. But from other points of view, it makes sense. So I don't know what your views are on that. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment to let me know what you think about that. Next up, also on April 13, Vlad Guerrero Jr. has an amazing game. It could be, and I don't know, he's so young and he's so good, but it's hard to believe you could have a better game than this. So they're playing the Yankees, and Garrett Cole, one of the, if not the best current pitcher in baseball, certainly one of the top 2 or 3 best pitchers in baseball. In the first inning, Vlad homers off Cole. His next time up to bat in the 3rd inning, he hits a line drive homer off Cole. Then in the sixth inning, he doubles off Cole. So he's 3 for 3 with 2 homers and a double. He's standing on second base, and Cole does such a classy move. He turns to second base and he tips his cap to the young 23-year-old slugger, Vlad Guerrero Jr. And that's amazing. And that is not all. Later in the game, once Cole's out, relief pitcher Jonathan Losegia's in the 8th, and Vlad hits yet another homer. So 3 homers and a double. What an amazing game. But it's not even so much what Vlad did, which I'm really excited about. It's the way Garrett Cole handled the situation. He didn't get mad about it. He turned and acknowledged a player having a terrific game, a great player having a terrific game. And I just thought, what a classy thing to do. Hats off to you, Garrett Cole, for tipping your hat to Vlad. So thank you for that. Okay, next up, the very next day, this is amazing to me. This all happened in one week of baseball. It's what makes it such a great game. On April 14, Chistian Pache of the A's hits what should be a single. In any other game, it's a single. It's ground ball up the middle near the bag. And then things start to go crazy. The ball goes by the shortstop, just out of his reach. It rolls in the outfield gap, and the Rays left fielder, Randy Arozarena, overruns the ball and tries to slide to it, and it gets by him. And then Kevin Kiermaier, who's playing center field, tries to pick the ball up, and he can't, and he drops it, and he tries to pick the ball up again. And the whole time, Chistian Pache is racing around the bases. And he gets an inside the park home run on what should have been a base hit. It was just the craziest play. What an exciting thing for him, a young, fast player, someone who I think the A's are really excited to have. And if you're an A's fan, I'm sure you're appreciating what Pache is doing. And he was acquired just really recently, just this offseason, in their trade of Matt Olson to Atlanta. So, what a cool thing to have happen. And I saw one of the writers called it a little league homer. And really it's that kind of thing that you see where someone, hits the ball decently, but then it slips by people and they kick it and they drop it. And it just doesn't look like the kind of thing you'd see in the major leagues, but it was really a fun thing. So enough talking about that, but what a cool thing, the inside the park home run by Chistian Pache. Next up, again, this is all in 1 week of baseball. I don't know if we can have another week with this many amazing and cool, fun things to talk about. But the very next day, on April 15, an extremely rare thing happens. The bases are loaded, and Texas's shortstop, the great hitting Corey Seager, is walked with the bases loaded to force in a run. It just doesn't happen. So I'll give you the circumstances, and we'll talk about briefly the other times this has happened in recent history. And it's almost where almost all the occurrences of this are like in the early 1900s or 1800s. This isn't something that in modern baseball, people just don't do it. So if just the 8th time in history that a hitter has been walked intentionally when the bases were loaded. The 2 times that listeners may remember here were in 2008, Josh Hamilton was intentionally walked with the bases loaded. And as you remember, Hamilton was an amazing feared hitter, of course. And the other one was Barry Bonds. I mean, who was a better hitter than Barry Bonds? That was in 1998. So those are the only 2 recent times it's happened. So this is kind of the situation. Corey Seager is facing a right-handed pitcher, Austin Warren. Seager is a left-handed hitter. And after Seager, there are two right-handed hitters coming up. And that, I'm sure, played into the decision, not only Seager being a terrific hitter, but having the lefty righty advantage coming up on the next two batters. But it just, it's so surprising. So here's what Joe Maddon, the manager who chose to walk Seager, was thinking. He says, I thought by walking Seager, it would help avoid the big blow. Seager is a career, has 305 batting average, 380 on base, and 510, 20 slugging against right-handed pitchers. So, yeah, I mean, if you think of it from that point of view, it could make sense. Now, I saw one writer quoted as saying that the move backfired because the next batter up hit a fly to deep right center, which became a sacrifice fly. And then the pitcher balked another runner home. But to me, that's not backfiring, because if the idea was that Joe Maddon said, I'm trying to avoid the big blow, the big hit by the other team, well, a sacrifice fly with the bases loaded, that's one of the best possible outcomes that the team playing defense could possibly want. So I don't see how I would consider that to be a problem. And what are you going to do about the pitcher bringing home a run by balking? I mean, that's rare. So I don't really think the move backfired. Yes, they ended up scoring 3 runs because one run was walked in intentionally. You had the sacrifice fly, and then you had the balk. But they didn't give up the big kind of devastating hit. So and they ended up coming back to win the game. But just kind of a crazy, unexpected thing to happen. It just doesn't happen. You just simply don't walk guys with the bases loaded, generally, no matter how feared of a hitter they are. And here it has happened already this early in the season. So just another fun thing. Again, just the 8th time in history that it has happened, and only 2 times in kind of modern recent history, Josh Hamilton and Barry Bonds. Okay, that covers the things that have happened for this week. And I got to tell you that you can tell by my voice, I've really been enjoying the baseball in the early going this season. Has really had some fun and excitement to it. So one other thing I want to talk about again, Miguel Cabrera. I was a little hard on him last week, saying maybe he should be, pushed down the lineup a little bit. But it's so exciting right now that he is on the chase for 3,000 hits, and he's getting really close. Now, I'm recording this on April 20, 2022, and last I checked, he was 4 hits shy, 2,996, 4 hits shy of 3,000. When he makes it, which certainly he will do, likely within the next few days, he will be only the 7th player in history who has both 3,000 hits and 500 homers. Can you guess who any of the other players are? Give you a moment to think about it. So the big reveal, some of them are players that you're going to go, oh yeah, I totally get that. Willie Mays is one of the other currently 6 players, but once Miggy makes it, one of the other 7 players, Willie Mays. Another one, Hank Aaron. Those 2, they seem pretty obvious. Maybe less obvious, a little under the radar, but a great hitter and really a darn good defensive player, as I recall, Eddie Murray, who played first base mostly for the Baltimore Orioles, for some other teams as well. Here's one you might come up with, Albert Pujols. So one currently still active player in Pujols, terrific hitter. To me, having Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols share a piece of history like that is terrific, because they have been, during the heights of their careers, which are a little past now, but during the heights of their careers, they really were the best hitter in the American League and the best hitter in the National League. And I'm talking about Pujols when he was playing for the Cardinals. And they were just both amazing hitters. And if you wanted to pick somebody to be your MVP, either of them had a great shot in any given year. There are two people I haven't mentioned yet who made that list: Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Eddie Murray, Albert Pujols. And the last two, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about as a fan. One of them is Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod. Terrific player to watch. Really liked him as a young shortstop when he came up with the Seattle Mariners. I think from my point of view as a fan, he became less likable as he went to Texas, and even less likable as he went to the Yankees. And especially the year that he tried to renegotiate his contract while the World Series was still going on. It was kind of a nutty thing. But of course, he's tainted a bit with accusations of performance-enhancing drugs. And then the last one is in a kind of similar realm is Rafael Palmeiro. So anyway, those are the 6 players that join. That Miggy will be joining in a few days. Oh, and so I have a quote from Miggy as well. I try to go out there and play my best baseball and help the guys. I know it's a lot of pressure. I know there's a lot of eyes on me, but at the same time, I'm in a good position right now. I'm happy to be here, and hopefully we can win more games. I think that's more important. If we win, I think the numbers are going to be there. What a classy thing to say. It's about the game. It's about the team. It's about winning. It's not about me getting another hit. And with that, Miguel Cabrera, when he joins that select group, also has, to his credit, 2 Most Valuable Player awards, a Triple Crown, 4 American League batting titles, and 7 appearances in the All-Star game. So congratulations, Miggy. You're almost there. All right. So now it's time for a new element of this podcast. And I call this my blast from the past. What we'll do in the blast from the past is we'll focus on a player from a previous era, from the 70s, 80s, or maybe the 1990s, or possibly a team from one of those eras. Someone slightly obscure, but with an interesting tale, an interesting story. And so for today, that is going to be, drum roll please, Norm Charlton. So let's talk a little bit about Norm Charlton. So Charlton played from 1988 through 2001. He played for the Cincinnati Reds, Seattle Mariners, Philadelphia Phillies, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves. He was probably mostly noted in his early days, a young player coming up with the Reds, a real hard thrower, lots of strikeouts, although I'm not sure by today's standards if we would think it was as many strikeouts as it seemed back then. One of the seasons that is most memorable to me about Charlton, and I've also got another tidbit about him besides his actual playing of the game. But in 1995, he helped the Seattle Mariners to first place in the American League West, and they went on to beat the New York Yankees in the first round of the playoffs that year. And although he was only on the team part of that year because he got traded from the Phillies, it was an amazing part of the year. In fact, actually, he'd been horrible with the Phillies. Earlier in the year, he pitched 22 innings. This is early in the year, and had a 7.36 ERA and a 1.7 WHIP. Not good. In fact, he was walking more guys per 9 than he was striking out. But once he was traded, he was lights out for the Mariners. So he pitched 47 innings for the Mariners that year with an earned run average of 1.51, a WHIP of 0.8. He was striking out 11 batters per 9 innings and 3.6 strikeouts for every walk. And in that limited play, 47 innings, he collected 14 saves. And so really helped the Mariners down the stretch and really solidified that bullpen. The next year, he had 20 saves, and actually his peak year in saves earlier in his career actually had been a starter. Peak year in saves was on the Cincinnati Reds in 92. He had 26 saves. So in 13 career years, 97 saves, career ERA of 3.71, career WHIP of 1.3. So overall, I think kind of a decent but not spectacular career, but certainly that season in Seattle, he was amazing. And one thing that I especially remember about him is what I would call his brush with fame, or maybe brush from fame isn't quite the right thing. Maybe his link to an international statesman. There were a series of TV commercials sponsored by the Mariners Ball Club. And I'm not actually sure what season this was. It might have been 95. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 96. And Charlton was on the team. And it was a very clever commercial because I remember it in great detail. So Charlton is pitching in the commercial, and they calls timeout. And the catcher comes out to the mound, and they start talking. And then some of the infielders gather around, and what you expect it to be something about what pitch do we throw this next batter, something like that. And one of the guys says, "Who's the Secretary General of the United Nations?" And one of the guys goes, "Oh, well, that's Boutros Ghali," which was correct at the time. And Charlton kind of scratches his head and he goes, Norm. That'd be a pretty cool name. And that's like the end of the commercial. And I just think it's so clever because they obviously are trying to give a different take on what kind of conversation might happen at the mound. But anyway, Norm Charlton. So I'll think of him as Norm. And just a fun memory about him, aside from his actual pitching. So that's my take on Norm Charlton, his stats, and his link to an international statesman. So we've got one more thing, which is today's Blimerick. That is our baseball Limerick. And this ties in with what we talked about at the very beginning of today's broadcast, Clayton Kershaw. So this really is in honor of Kershaw and his 7-inning no-hitter. 7 innings he threw Clayton Kershaw. Not a hit, not a walk, not a flaw. But though he was perfect, pitch count he must respect. And from the no-no, he withdraws. Granted, he didn't withdraw from the no-no. His manager took him out. But we have to have a little bit of poetic license in order to get the different stanzas of the Limerick to rhyme. So that covers everything that we had today. Join us next time. I'm lining up an interview with a longtime Points League player and many-time league champion to get her perspective on fantasy baseball, insider tips, and the state of the game. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of My Week in Baseball. I'm your host, Phil Estruth Harrison.